Why don't we talk a little bit about what the thing does? Let's see. Okay, so we got, Rob's going to Vanna White it here for us. Today we're doing something a little different. We're at Autodesk University at the Factory Experience, and we are talking to the dream team from RIT. We got Alex Lobos here. Alex is the director of the Industrial Design Program.
School of Design.
Director of School of Design. We've got Rob Dean, who is a former student of RIT. We're going to tell you more about him in a minute. And then Juan Noguera, who is the professor that sort of ran this ongoing project that we're going to tell you about here. So let's start with you, Alex. Tell us about yourself.
So I'm, you said it, I'm the director of the School of Design at Rochester Institute of Technology, in upstate New York. We have a bunch of design programs, new media, graphic, interior, industrial, and 3D, digital. My background is in industrial design, and that's where, I was working when, we started the collaboration with Autodesk over, 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And now, we get to do this together. So, it's been a fun ride,
Yeah. So now, why are we here? Like, what's the point? The Factory Experience, if you've been watching our channel, is something you already know about. We had a series where we talked about the different projects we've done in the past. The big idea here is that we go from concept to production all on the Fusion platform, powered by our partners. We come to AU every year, and we come with a new consumer product we've designed. We have our partners make parts on site. People come through on a tour. They learn about what all the partners do and what Fusion does. And then they get to the assembly area here, which is right behind us. And then they assemble the device using Fusion operations, and they get to take a cool takeaway with them. Do we have one, by the way? So one of you got one in a pocket?
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah. Great. So the batteries are dead. So, that's okay. And but this is the device that we're doing this year. The thing that sets this device apart from the ones we've done in the past is that I didn't just design it myself without much help. That's the way we've always done it before. So in 2023, did we do that? Yeah, that was that T-minus. Yeah, 2023, we did this thing where we went to T-minus, which is this really cool event RIT puts on every year, where they get all their industrial design students together from undergrad freshmen to people who are about to graduate. They put them in mixed groups, and then each group comes up with a product concept that they present at the end of the week. And from the architecture world, my background, we call this a charrette. And the idea is that you have a really short time to put something together, and you got to put your pencil down and get the concept out there. And I think it's a great way to get students started on everything. I thought it was a great concept when you told me about it in the first place. But RIT was gracious enough to let us come and give them the brief this time. So we went to RIT, we did some workshops and stuff. And the brief we gave them was come up with a consumer product that has different kinds of manufacturing represented, that is, the device itself is interesting to put together without being frustrating, fits in the palm of your hand, and is something that an Autodesk customer might want. And then we got 90 concepts, I think. It was a lot. So there was
It was over 50.
Over 50, yeah. And then we had to choose between them, which was difficult because there were so many good submissions. But we chose Rob's concept. So tell us what your concept was.
I took this as a rare opportunity as an Autodesk user myself to design for myself. Usually that's not something you get to do.
Yeah.
And so my concept was a multi-tool that would be something unique that designers would want to use in the field, and not just product designers, but a wide variety of designers. And so my focus was on using tools that aren't commonly seen in multi-tools and in such a small package, particularly together. And so I landed on a laser distance measure, color reader, an RGB color reader, and a level, and a square, and a protractor.
Yep.
Which are not commonly found.
Yeah.
In one convenient package.
And all those things made it into the product. So that was the reason we chose your concept. Clearly, everything represented there. This is something that could be used by an architect, could be used by an industrial designer, could be used by pretty much any kind of engineer. Interior design, the color meter especially is really useful for that. Also, media and entertainment. You see some color that really strikes you as something you might want to put in your, video game or movie or whatever. You're able to do that.
And one thing that I want to add is that this was a team.
It was a team. That's
a
right.
team project.
Yep.
So each team had freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and grad student.
Yep.
So just like you're talking about different functionality, and you're talking about designing for yourself. It was very interesting to see the teams bringing in ideas and then collaborating over a week. A big component of T minus, along with learning about design and manufacturing and process, is also building community. We have a fairly large program.
Yep.
At RIT, it's about 300 students.
Yep.
So believe it or not, there's a lot of students that don't know each other.
Yeah.
They are in the same program. So this is a great way for them to come together and make friendships, and then continue that when they go out into the field.
Yeah, and that's also a very real world scenario. You're the new intern at an office or something like that. Nobody's going to be asking you to come up with the concept for this product. Your job is going to be to do Photoshop or renderings or something like that, right? So when you get a mixed group like that together, everybody gets to contribute something that's valuable, but you also have this range of experience that makes for somebody that you were about to graduate, I believe.
Yep.
You've had a lot of experience in this already, and you had you're a grad student, right? You had a previous career and so on. So it's really great to get that mix together. Really cool to see. One of the things that really struck me about it was when we got all the proposals, the quality was really high across the board. I was a professor, previously, and I know how much quality can vary student to student. But I was just really impressed by how good all the projects were coming out of RIT. So let's just talk a bit about the factory, right? What are your impressions of this? If you were, you're coming in here with fresh eyes, you see what we're doing here. What do you think?
Well, maybe going back a little bit to the design prompt that the students had, I think that the factory is a really interesting and unique thing to design for, right? It's an experience where people come here and they build a device, they see how it was designed, they see how each part is made, and then they put it together themselves and take it home. And usually when you design a consumer product, you're thinking of efficiency. Like, I'm going to design as few parts as possible. They're all going to have to be made out of the same material, potentially in the same factory. Like, that's an ideal situation. And here we're designing not only for what the final product has to do, but for the experience of putting it together, of being here and seeing what all the different partners are building on the floor, and then assembling it yourself, assuming that maybe you don't have any technical knowledge, like trying to make it easy, and then taking it home as a souvenir that makes you think of Fusion and of this entire factory production. So like designing for that experience, I think it's super interesting because it's such a unique event.
Yeah, it's a consideration we run into all the time where, working on a team, working with engineers, talking to Xometry, who, does the production run and all that stuff. When we start working on the design for manufacturing side, there are a lot of obvious solutions to make the thing cheaper, to make it simpler to put together and so on. And I have to keep reminding people, you can't be too simple because then it's not interesting to put together. It's like, it's a very unusual thing. I know that sometimes there are toys that are meant to be assembled, right? Like that's the kind of a consumer product that's, maybe fits in that a little bit. But yeah, it's always been a fun challenge for me just because of that.
For me, it was a really interesting process, particularly seeing the younger students. I have a background in manufacturing. I was actually a production welder before I went back to school. And so I was sort of familiar with a lot of the manufacturing processes and how those sorts of things operate. But obviously the younger students aren't. And so this was one of the first times I'd seen them be pushed to consider those and the assembly complications. And it was really good practice for them. And even for me, my thesis was on flat pack furniture.
Yeah.
And so part of my thesis is revolves around something being easily assemblable for the average person. Mm-hmm. And this was a really great way to sort of jumpstart that thinking at the beginning of my thesis here.
It was something that really drew me to your design to begin with, was that I looked at it and I said, oh, I could just make that now. I mean, I messed with some draft angles a little bit and, I kind of tweaked some things here and there, but it was clearly designed by somebody who knows how things are put together. So
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I had no previous experience with plastics specifically, and I was doing my best to get it there.
Yeah,
and
you had
I
a
really
good-
didn't know how well I hit that mark.
yeah, close enough.
Good. Glad
For
to
a
hear.
concept, especially. Yeah. How about you?
So I come to AU every year.
Yeah.
So, I've seen the different iterations of the factory, and I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's so fun.
Yeah.
And then, you see all the products excited, thinking about the impact. I mean, I can think of a number of them. Fusion has so many capabilities, and I feel that many times people don't know how far it can go. So having a product like this that shows different manufacturing processes, materials, etc., really tells a strong story. The other thing that I like is that it helps you to appreciate all the steps that go into making a product even more, right? So most times we buy products that are already assembled. We don't know all the thinking that went into adding a rev or making sure that the draft was in a certain way, right? So now taking this to RIT, exposing that to our students and, giving them a fairly straightforward way to really get into those details, was a great experience, right? I mean, many times because of, how the learning environment is, everything is more open-ended, right? Like, oh yeah, come up with great ideas and, yes, one day we could make them happen. In this case, it was like, no, we need to make them happen now.
Right.
So that put a very interesting, challenge, to the students. And it was great just to, see them rise up to it and come up with these very cool solutions.
They certainly did rise to the challenge. And one of the coolest things about it was that after we've only talked about T- where the concept came from. After that, we had 2 studio classes that focused on this project. And the first one worked on all 3 of the top 3 winning concepts. And then the second studio class focused it exclusively on this final iteration. Now, what that allowed us to do, kind of selfishly, was to have now 3 concepts that are very close to being something that you could bring into design for manufacturing. So, in the coming years, expect to see those come out as well. But in the final studio, we were able to kind of rely on Juan's studio as a real design studio. Every Friday we met and they showed us the progress of that week. We gave them feedback. They went back and tried new things. And then what we ended up with at the end was very close to what you're seeing here. Which brings me to a question for Rob. What is your impression of the final product compared to the concept you came up with?
Well, my concept, I think, given the short time span, I was pleased with the concept from a functionality perspective, but the form factor was, I thought left something to be desired, and I had fears that not all of the functionality would be actually feasible for the final production model. And so it's been really, really satisfying to see how it's come out.
Up to your standards, good.
The T- competition took place during my thesis year, so I didn't have time to participate in the classes that were refining the concepts. And so coming here and seeing the final product with the last thing in my mind being the concept that I worked on 2 years ago was really, really cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see how it turned out. It's amazing how we were able to make use of all the manufacturing partners in making this come together. It's very satisfying to see.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Is this a good design in the end?
I love the design. I mean, it's so iconic.
Yeah.
The hook that you have here with the covering.
I love that idea.
It's so iconic and so so functional.
Whose idea was that, by the way?
I think that might have been Sam's team in the last iteration of
I remember it was in the last iteration, and this came out of left field. And I look at this and I'm like, what is that hole there for? And it says, oh, it's a carabiner. And I'm like, of course, like great idea.
And of course came out of a conversation of thinking of the conference and the environment, carrying around all this swag that you may or may not like necessarily, right? You get like a t-shirt and a water bottle that you get at a conference, but then you're
juggling all this stuff
that you can just like clip onto your bag, and maybe then you'll want to keep using it and keep carrying it, right?
Well, it also added an extra layer of problems for us, which is now everybody sees these on everybody's backpacks and they stop and say, hey, what is that? Where'd you get it? And now I have a line around the corner over there, people waiting for 3 hours to get one of these things. So, it's not all positive in that way, I guess. But yeah, very, really, really smart idea there.
And I wanted to say something, just going back to Alex's point about the difference between something you keep in the theory and something that we know we want to put into production here with you.
Yeah.
And for people in the conference is the level of energy that students had, not only in the competition, but also in the classes that we taught was very high. There's a lot of excitement and anticipation. And, we had this class every Friday. We'd have a scheduled meeting time with you and your team that we knew we had to prepare some stuff to show you. And people were like genuinely concerned about like, is this going to be good enough? Are they going to like it? And there's a lot of positivity around that because they knew that this could potentially become a real product that was not just going to be left in the classroom. And I think that type of experience, they're few and far between, unfortunately. And it's a great case study of how collaboration can really work well that way.
Yeah. No, it was a huge help to us. I mean, you guys did us a really big favor. It was, I mean, having access to your studio to just, instead of me thinking, oh, I should try, I need to fix that thing, or what's that draft angle going to do or whatever. And then I've got to go find the time to go make that happen and, talk to the engineers and all that stuff. Just kind of letting you guys have at it was a huge benefit to us. So I just want to say thank you again for that. Great work. Why don't we talk a little bit about what the thing does? Let's see. Okay. So we got, Rob's going to Vanna White it here for us. So we're starting in protractor mode. So he's going to pull that out and you'll see it start negative. And then it goes to, around 90, and then it's at 180, it switches and it's positive, and then it should give you a 90-degree angle when you get to there. So now it's a square.
Perfect.
That was part of Rob's original design, was that at the end of the rotation, it would be a square, which is a really cool idea. And then that goes back and becomes a carabiner, a nice satisfying click there. You page down and there are places to store values. So you push the button to store values. You've got 6 at a time. And then the next one, there we go. Click it, turns yellow. And then here we got a distance measure. So that's measuring way up somewhere.
This is the lens. So you see that, I have my finger next to the lens. As I start moving this up,
Maybe we'll have to do a close-up later. Yeah, we may have found a glitch.
We can zero it, and then we can start doing it.
Yeah, here, 0. Click and hold the middle one. Okay. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah. Troubleshooting.
There we go.
So
There we go.
we are looking at centimeters is the default.
This, and then switch to
Inches. Yeah. Yep. And you can store those values as well. And then it's also got a level. So there's a one-dimensional level. So he's pretty close to level right there. And then if he tilts it, you'll see the level change. Tilt it this way. There you go. Yep. And then if you go one more mode down, you've got a 2D level. So that's to find a flat surface.
flat surface.
Yep.
You get a close-up.
Yep. And then the next one is the color sensor. This one's a little trickier to capture. Yeah, my hand, right? So, yeah,
Hand color.
it's you got to get it a couple centimeters away from the sensor
Let's try the.
and make sure there's no shadow. So,
Oh, that's very shadow.
yeah, it's that part's tricky with the lighting. It takes a little getting used to. And then the last screen gives you instructions and a QR code that takes you to the landing page for the device, where we'll have firmware updates and stuff like that. So yeah, this is what we're making here. Lots of different types of manufacturing considered. We've got injection molding, 3D printing, CNC, and of course off-the-shelf components and all that. As maybe you guys could, kind of fill in the blanks here a little bit, but it's unusual for a consumer product, as you normally would not have any CNC machining. We probably wouldn't have 3D printing in there. So can you talk about some of the differences between this and like the way you would make it if it was going to be on a shelf?
Yeah, it's in a way a little counterintuitive to what we tend to do is to try to optimize things and make them faster and then simpler and easier to build. And as you had mentioned before, just having it be fun to build is a component there. So like the number of parts that go into it was important to keep to a certain level of complexity. The materials are fairly dissimilar, or we have a metal machine part, as you say, is not a common thing to see outside of like tooling or fixtures or other types of non-consumer products. Tolerancing and considering the tolerances between a machine part and a plastic part, and even just different 3D printing processes was something to consider when you fit all these things together. So it's fairly unusual that way. I think that's also what made the design process pretty fun.
One thing that I also noticed that was very interesting, and that actually mimics industry a lot, because we had different cohorts of students working on this. They had to pass the baton, right? They will have the concept at a certain level, and then someone else will take over and figure it out, which is how it is like in industry, right? So it was very nice to see all of those changes, and I think that it also made students appreciate, kind of the bigger picture, And I can tell you, being kind of on the outside, almost as an observer of this process, when I see this and I think of the initial concept, the essence remained the same, and that is one thing that I love.
Absolutely.
There was so much refinement in terms of functionality, parts, manufacturability, but I feel that the main component always remained the same. And actually, I want to commend you, Juan, and also you, Jonathan, because you were leading that concept, all the way through.
It was nice to see. Normally, it's a pretty competitive process in school. Like, my project's better than your project, and it's fun to see. At the start of the semester, I would provide the final presentation from the previous semester. We sort of treated that information as gospel a little bit, because we saw, okay, what did they do? They proposed this. Like, would they like this? And we can't ask them. They graduated, like Rob in that instance. So we treated that information respectfully and then just evolved it, and it really turned it into a team effort. And it showed, and there was a lot of cross collaboration even between the teams working on it to make sure that things were working well for everyone in the class, and that was excellent to see.
Yeah, it's such a great point. Design school is very competitive, and everyone's collegial. People tend to get along, but yes, everyone's trying to distinguish themselves all the time. That's important, but in the real world, you're always on a team. You never do this stuff in a vacuum. And to be able to have that experience, that's got to be really valuable.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is also the students have been here on the factory experience floor helping people build it. And I think that in itself is informational, because you think of decisions that you made and were they the right decisions now that I'm trying to explain to this person that they're seeing this for the first time and they can't figure this part out or that part out. And how could I have made that experience a little better for them? Right? And you don't get to necessarily see users engage with your product that way, or even the people that manufacture your product that way, because sometimes you don't considering the manufacturer process as carefully as you should when you're designing something. And can the tool fit in there? Is the order of operations for assembling this thing correct? So it really makes you think that way. So I think that's also, having them here is a good component to that experience.
That's such a great point. I mean, one of the reasons we do this is because we're all specialists, right? And if you're an industrial designer, you may never set foot in a factory. You certainly wouldn't be assembling anything. But to be able to see every other aspect of what happens here, just to understand how quickly you can CNC machine something, right? Or watching a person struggle with a certain step as opposed to another one. You watch and you get ideas. I mean, I do every year. Oh, we should do that differently. This part needs to be different. Those two could be combined. All that stuff kind of comes out in a way that you just wouldn't see otherwise.
And another thing that I appreciate is this is an iterative process, right? So this is, in the refinement, this is, I don't know, like version 20 or 30, right? But now this is version 1, and we're already beginning to talk about version 2. So, that mimics, the real world, and I think it's very exciting. We've been talking about, can we look at the, interface and maybe tweak it? You were talking about the user experience in terms of putting it together. Is that something that we can touch on? So there are so many different directions that we can take this, and that makes it even more exciting.
Absolutely. I think that's a pretty good place to end it. So thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all your help with this project. We couldn't have done it without you, seriously. And I can't wait to work on more stuff.
Well, and thank you for the opportunity. I mean, it's been wonderful, working with you. Thank you for trusting us, in being part of this process. And yeah, I mean, we could not have asked for, a better collaboration. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys. All right.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Back to work. Hey, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all things Shop Talk. If you're ready to try Fusion 3 yourself, find the link in our description.